Guys, I am back from another video, and today we're about what if Belle was a B.O.W. And also, I'm quite sorry for not making a video yesterday because I was a bit tired of, after going to a pool because of my family deciding to go there, which was out of the blue. So, unfortunately, I didn't make a video back then. So, I'm gonna be doing it now, and this is probably gonna be the last episode. Maybe. So, yeah. So, let us begin the actual explanation about what happened last episode. So, in the last video, we talked about how we moved to a different perspective by the name of Fel. Fel would basically explain about what happened in the 59th floor about Dr. Ragnar basically taking it over. After hearing it out, well, let's just say a certain god by the name of, Aranos would be notified, as when he does, he would tell Fel to basically bring in the rest of the members of the Familias that are planning on going to the 59th floor to basically get out of there. So, after he left, Aranos would basically call in a meeting for the other gods and goddesses. After explaining what happened, and also explaining what are B.O.W's thanks to, the help of Loki, and also talking about the boy named Bell, aka, our main character of the story, everybody would just be amazed knowing that Bell is basically that overpowered. So, yeah, let's move back to Bell's perspective, where when they're about to go into the dungeon, they would be stopped by Fel, and also some B.O.W. empowered monsters. So, after defeating them and also being teleported back, they were told by Fel to basically go back to their, main operation, or should I say their, wait for a second, their Familia HQ. So, after getting back, and also Loki also getting back, she would explain that they're going to be training for a while now, because they're going to be having a frontal assault against Ragnar and his, kingdom of B.O.Ws, otherwise known as the Reborn. So, after being told of this, everybody started training, including many other familias, except for a certain, Apollo familia, which apparently they started fighting against the Ares familia, and they started having a bit of a war game, which ended off at the defeat of the Apollo familia. So yeah, the Ares Familia is much more stronger, but still dumber, kind of. So, yeah. And for Belle and, Tione's relationship, they started blossoming into more of a romantic relationship. And they started sleeping together, if you get what I mean. So, after this, we ended off the episode where Belle and the rest of the other familias getting ready to go into floor 19th, the territory of Dr. Ragnar's little B.O.W. kingdom. So, that is basically what happened last episode. And so, let's talk about what happens next. So, in the entrance of floor 59th, everybody's basically getting ready, including some, people that are basically like, frontline fighters, including not Izuku, I meant Bell, goddammit. This is gonna be hard. And also, that certain commenter. Yeah, I know you. The guy who basically keeps telling me about, like, my whole, streak about, calling, Bell Izuku. Yeah, I know. I basically say that, Bell is basically like Izuku. I'm trying to fix that, okay? So just shut the fuck up. I'm not trying to insult you. It's just it's actually just quite hilarious. Anyway, so Bell is basically getting ready his weapons, including Tione and also, Bet. And many others like, Eyes, Finn, and Tiona, as everybody would start going into the tunnel where floor 59th is. As when they do enter it, they would see that this place is basically like a winter wasteland filled with broken carts, probably from explorers that are planning on going through this dungeon, or at least this part of the dungeon, and probably got killed by BOWs. They would see that several crows basically align the entire place, or more specifically, basically sitting on rotting treetops, as everybody's basically in a cautious state, basically getting ready in case of another attack from a B.O.W. infected monster. So everybody would cautiously would basically get ready in case of that happening. Tione is a bit afraid, as Belle would basically calm her down, saying that it's okay. I mean, it is basically like the ultimate battle between humanity and that thing. So yeah, as everybody's basically just like walking around this literal like wasteland of snow and ice, they would hear the sound of noises, as they would see a huge squad of monsters, or more specifically, um, kind of like lichens from like Resident Evil Village, but except a little bit more monstrous. What do I mean by this? Well, imagine them having full on like wolf heads, and they literally are wielding like medieval ass weapons. Some even wielding like I don't know, like literal like medieval armor. As they would see a large I think it was called like a wait for a second. I think it was called Urias. Yeah, Urias, which is basically like the larger cousin to to the lichen. As they would start charging in, riding on mutated horses, which these mutated horses would be more feral to say the least. Some of the adventurers, mostly familiar members, would start shooting out arrows, magic, and also many other blasts of like projectiles. Izuku would be on the front lines, basically slicing through all of them with his knife, and with his Dane's Leaf, basically destroying them in an instant. As many others would basically start slashing at them, including Bet, which he would use fire to basically burn them freaking alive. So, after a while of fighting, they would realize that they're probably like, scouts or something. So they would start moving on in case of like, I don't know, like an actual attack force happening, or at least coming towards them. So, as everybody starts to, starts to die down, they would realize that there's a large gate. This large gate seems to be the entrance to this village of monsters, or more specifically B.O.Ws. As one of them would basically slowly open it. As when they do, they see a large, rotting, almost like disheveled village, filled with, several carts, filled with several, like, um, wait for a second, filled with several empty houses and shops. As they would think, maybe this used to be a regular old village until they struck, or more specifically, Dr. Ragnar. They would feel that this place is basically like a ghost town, as they would get ready in case of another attack. They mostly see nothing, mostly run-down houses, which when they looked over them, well, or at least seen inside of them, they're mostly just like, some furniture and broken windows and many other, things. They would occasionally find treasure, but most of them were just made out of gold, but it is pretty useful. So, everybody would just like look around, finding nothing but broken furniture and many other things like that, as they would see another large gate, which when they open it, it's almost like a plaza, kind of. This plaza-like place would basically almost like be like a large park, but when they looked over, they would see behind this, well, large-looking plaza is the how do I say it? In the distance, yeah. In the distance, there's this large ass castle, which maybe it's Dr. Ragnar's castle. As they would be alerted to another sound, the sound of a war horn, as they would see several B.O.W. infected monsters, including some, how do I say this? Like, wait for a second. Some giant Uranus like monsters, including, some looking like they're completely infected, some mutating, and one of them seems to be a wolf-like monster, which seems to have three more heads that resemble how do I say this? Like a mashup of like several monsters, several infected, several infected minotaurs basically align this whole thing up as they would start charging in at them. Several of the familiar members would basically start slashing at them. Finn would use his spear to basically start stabbing them, and as for eyes, eyes would start using magic to enhance their senses to basically start slicing through them like butter. And as for Bell, Bell would start using his wait for a second, Bell would start using his Dane's Leaf to basically start shooting them down. Mostly the higher level ones, which, when he saw, they were pretty much overpowered as hell. They seemed to be infected with several more viruses than him. As after he kills all of them, everybody would start calming down. As they would start going into the large looking plaza like section. As everybody is basically like looking around, they would hear the sound of laughter. As you would see in the fountain that's basically in the middle of the plaza, as they would see a laughing jester like B.O.W, as he seems to speak, but kind of almost like kind of like the Joker basically, as you would say this. So you defeated Dr. Ragnar's elite force. That's quite interesting and quite formidable. As one of them would say this, "Who the hell are you? You damn clown." One of them would speak up, being a member of the sorry about that. God dang it, wait for it. A member of the Ares Familia, as he would say this. "Well, you may call me the Harlequin, the fool." As his eyes would glow a menacing green, as he would say this. "So, what are you planning to do with my new village, my new home? Are you planning to destroy it?" As he would give off this almost menacing smile, even though his face is basically obscured by a large mask, a mask that resembles a puppet that seems to be crying. As he would say this, being the Ares Familia member, "Yes, we're gonna tear it down, and we're gonna be killing you damn monsters." As he would say this, "But I'm not a monster. I'm a B.O.W. It's more like you could say that we're more like beasts than anything else. Anyway, I should be reporting this to my boss. You probably know him, Dr. Ragnar. Especially you over there, Tyrant Type Zeus." As he would start looking at, Bell, as Bell would say this, "I told you not to call me that." As he would say this, "Still pretty angry at that nickname. Or at least your old name back in the day." As usual. Anyway, see ya. As he would basically disappear, turning into nothing more than a pile of like insects. Or more specifically, a pile of insects that seemed to be almost sentient. They would basically start disappearing instantly by flying. So, as everybody would see this guy, they would start thinking, "The hell is wrong with this guy? And what the heck are those powers? Those are definitely not, a type of skill or, a type of ability or something." So, as everybody would see this, they would start going through the gate as they would see a large path. A path leading up to, to the castle all the way from here. As one of them would say this, being a representative of the, wait for a second, Taka Michizuchi Familia, as he would say this, "Alright, everybody, we should probably go there, in case of another attack. Or we should probably go there in case if we find Dr. Ragnar." As Izuku would think in his mind, "That's obviously a fucking trap, you idiot." As Izuku would just say the obvious, but I think it's probably a trap. As the Takemikizuchi representative would say this. Really, then do you have any proof? As you would say this. Well, isn't it freaking obvious? As he would basically look at the whole setup. As one of them would say this, being a random member of the, Ganesha Familia. I do agree with him. I mean, it looks pretty fishy. As one of them would say this, yeah, I mean, I can definitely see why, but maybe it's something, a bit too obvious. As Bell would just say to himself, that's not the freaking point or something like that. As the Takemichizuchi Familia representative would say this. Alright, anyway, we should probably go there. All favors on me? As all of them would basically raise up. Most of them, at least. Mostly the members of, like, random familias, except for, the random, like, Ganesha Familia member, and also, his Familia, aka the Loki Familia, doesn't, like, raise their hands at all. So, as everybody would basically realize that he decided to go, or at least the Takemichizuchi Familia representative is basically saying that they should go there, to that path, as everybody would gladly do it. So, as everybody started following this path, Yuzuki would think, goddamn fucking idiots. As when they're about to make it to that large gate, they would be attacked by a large swarm of monsters, or more specifically, B.O.W. infected monsters. These ones almost resembling rhinos with, I don't know, with the bodies of freaking giants, and they seem to have, like, armor, and on top of that, they seem to be like mounts. Like, literal, like, mounts. As they would see on top of the, like, or at least the back of these, monsters, they seem to be, well, several soldiers, or more specifically B.O.W. infected, like, B.O.W. infected monsters, that are basically acting like, how do I say this? Like, those things are basically riding them, but not in that way. So, as these monsters would start throwing spears at them, some of them would get killed, and some of them would basically get injured. Some of the Familia members would realize that it's obviously a trap, as they would think in their minds, God fucking damn it. So, Bell would basically start using his, Dainsleeve to basically kill these BOWs on top of that gigantic-ass BOW. After they were killed, these monsters would basically start going onto a large rage. They would basically start glowing blood red, almost like, their auras basically leaking out of them, as they would start charging in at random Familia members left and right. Some of them getting killed, some of them getting injured, but thankfully most of them are not really, powerful enough. What do I mean by this? Well, at least they're just like random Familia members, but at least, at least some of them are not like, powerhouses like Bet or, Finn. As all of them are basically killed, Bell would say this. I fucking told ya. As one of them would say this. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, what are we supposed to do then? As, well, Bell would say this. We should probably go into that large yard. As he would point at a large-looking yard, which is also connected to the large castle. So, as they go in, they would see, well, the Harlequin, also known as the Fool, basically appear once again, basically turning into a large swarm of, insects, as he would be formed instantly. Almost like these insects are basically a part of him, as he would say this. You actually defeated our little trap, eh? That's quite amusing. Anyway, I already informed Dr. Ragnar of your arrival. Now, I hope you're ready because there's going to be a large and full-size war. Even though we already expected you. As his face and body would start changing, turning into more of a swarm of insects. Some of his, body parts would start transforming into more of an insect, as his face would start showing, almost resembling like a fly, as you would say this, now, ready to all die, or maybe even join our cause, as he would tell every single one of his minions, these minions resembling more like insects and several other, you know, um, B.O.W. infected monsters, seeming to be like the bosses of this area, to basically kill all of them. The rest of the Familia members were basically fighting them off, as some of them would tell Bell and the rest of the Loki Familia to start, going into the castle to try and basically fight against, Dr. Ragnar. Izuku would. I meant Izuku, I meant Bell, goddammit. So, Bell and the rest of the Loki Familia members, or at least some of them, would start leaving, going into the large castle, as they would start going through the stairs, which, goddamn, there were so many fucking stairs, as they would go into a large corridor. So, as everybody's basically going through this, large corridor, they would start knocking down doors, trying to find Dr. Ragnar. So, Tione and Tiona would basically start looking through all the doors, finding that it's mostly just like bedrooms, or at least like extra bedrooms. And as for, Tiona, not Tiona, I meant, wait for a second. Finn is basically looking out several, looking out the areas, checking if there's, like, any other monsters or enemies looking around. And as for Bet is basically with Bell, basically, kind of like, backup in case of, like, another attack. So, they would start looking everywhere, as they would find out that Dr. Ragnar is not here. Until one of them, specifically Bet, would say this, "Ah, shit!" As you would basically grab like a large bookshelf, as you would basically throw it down and basically starts destroying it, burning it in an instant. As Bell would say this, Bet, did you just found this secret compartment? As Bet would say this, what did you, I think I just did. Bet would just leap up in surprise and see that behind that bookcase is a large, gigantic ass door, which the rest of the Familia members, specifically, Finn, Tiona, and Tione, are completely impressed. Leafia would basically be here as well, as she would say this, "Whoa, I can't believe that Bet, out of all people, would decide to do that. I mean, he's basically the musclehead most of the time." As Bet would say this, "What did you say, Shorty?" As she would say this, "Oh, nothing, I didn't mean anything, As Belle would say this, "So, how are we supposed to open this?" As Belle would basically grab his arms and basically pushes them back and starts transforming them into their more B.O.W-like state, being these ones. As he would basically start slashing through these doors and basically just like ripping them apart, as they would make an entranceway. As, wait for a second. Finn would say this, you should have just, decided to just, I don't know, maybe like ask Bet to basically bet on the door. As Belle would just say this, "Well, it's much more fun to do that." As, Tione would say this, "Typical of you." As Belle would say this, "Whatever." So, when they started going into this large door, they would see it's a large staircase. It starts going down. So, everybody would start walking down this staircase as they would hear the sounds of screaming, probably from captured, adventurers or something. Wait for a second. They would start to hear screaming as all of them would think in their minds, sorry about that. They would start thinking in their minds, what the fuck is going on here? As when they do get to a large, door, they would open it and see that Dr. Ragnar is basically hooked up to this large machine that's connected to the Black Dragon. All of them would gasp, realizing that the Black Dragon is here, as they would think in their minds, how the fuck is the Black Dragon here? I thought it was... As Belle would say this, the hell? As Dr. Ragnar would say this, yes, give me more. As he would start to look over and see some of the Loki familia there, as he would say this, "So, Tyrant Type Zero, so, you finally arrived to see my ascension to godhood." As Belle would say this, Ascension to whathood? As he would say this, I'm finally gonna become a god that will become unstoppable, even more stronger than, than those so-called gods. As his body would start to change, his, skin would start to shift and peel, almost resembling, the black dragon scales, his eyes turning a blood, curdling red. His mouth would also start to change. It would start to change and turning his, normally weird ass teeth into more sharp like teeth, almost similar to the black dragon. His wings, they would start to basically sprout out, becoming black, as his arm, or at least his arm where, Bell basically cut him off at in the last video, or at least in the last video, he would start changing. It would start changing into more of the black dragon's claws, and as for his normal arm, which Bell didn't cut off, it was turned into more of a, a less scalier version of that. And it seems to have, blood red claws, as when he did that, or I meant like when he did that, his body would slump over as he would basically start crawling, as he would basically stand up as the black dragon, which when Bell sees it, the black dragon seems to be malnourished and seems to be slumped over, dead. As everybody would start looking over and sees, Dr. Ragnar basically charging at one of them, specifically, Bell. Bell would basically start attacking him as, Dr. Ragnar would say this. You used to be one of my strongest creations, but now you're nothing more than weak, pathetic. Your so-called humanity is making you weak. Destroy that humanity, and you will become strong. As Bell would say this. Bullshit! As he would basically start slashing at him, as he would say this, being Dr. Ragnar. What? I'm just telling the truth. Humans are nothing more than weak. And why did you decide to just engulf yourself in this humanity? Humanity is worthless. As Bell would say this. You're lying. Humanity can be precious. Just like me and Tione. As he would start looking at the girl, which is with, Bell, as he would say this. So, your little lover over there, that Tione girl, she's making you weak. As he would start to charge over there, going towards, Tione, as he would say this. Without her, you'll become strong, just like me. As he would say this. Now prepare to die, you damn weakness. As when she sees this, she would prepare to die. As Bell would basically just charge over there and basically blocks the attack. As Tione would see that Bell is basically just how do I say this? Dr. Ragnar's arm is basically through Bell's chest. As Tione would say this. Bell, are you okay? As Bell would say this. I'm fine. As he would basically grabs his, large knife and basically cuts off his arm, leaving the arm in his chest. As he would say this. My regeneration. God, fuck. As he would say this. So, at the cost of getting this power, you lost your regeneration, right? As he would say this. You are right, but I'm much more stronger than you. This humanity is worthless. I shall become stronger, but at a cost of my so-called humanity. As his mouth would start transforming into more of a lizard-like mouth, as he would start growing to immense size, transforming into basically like the black dragon and himself, almost like a hybrid of them, mixed with several of the viruses, but more negated than anything else. The viruses are basically acting like a glue, Bell would say, as one of them would say this. So what we're about to do, as Bell would say this. So, I have an idea, but bet. And he would start looking at, Finn, as he would say this. Finn, I want to try and synthesize an antidote. There's probably some sort of like, I have some sort of blueprint for that. As one of them would say this, being, Bet. As Bet would say this. Some sort of antidote? What are you trying to do? As Bell would say this. Well, if we destroy those viruses that are in Dr. Ragnar's body, then his body would probably explode. Or something even scarier. At least something to at least destroy this bastard. As, well, Finn would say this. Very well, Bell. As Bet would say this. Fine, brat. Then go win this for us. As you would start going towards the, table, as, Dr. Ragnar would see this, as you'd say this. Why, you little... Nobody shall stop me to my ascension to godhood. As you would start charging towards Bet and Finn, as Bell would basically block him, using his sword, or at least his knife, as he would basically slice his, fingers, or more specifically his pinky and ring finger, as he would say this. What in the... As you would start looking towards, Bell, as Bell would say this. So, how do you like that? As you'd say this. You impertinent little brat! I will not let you fucking stop me! As you would start charging towards him. So, Bet and, Finn would start synthesizing an antidote. And as for, Leafia in the battle, she would start helping, Bell by creating more and more blasts of energy. Or more specifically, more of her magic. And as for Tione and, wait for a second. Tiona, they would start acting, basically on the sidelines. Knowing that, Bell is basically handling things by himself. Wait for a second. So, after a while, Bet and Finn would finally make the antidote. After finding a bit of blueprints on an antidote for his, new virus, aka the Ragnar elimination virus. As he would throw it at Bell, basically grabbing it, as Bell would say this. So, this is the antidote, eh? As he would basically start covering it in his, claws, as he would say this. Now, I just made a decisive blow. As he would see that his chest, or more specifically his exposed chest, which is not covered by the scales, seems to be a heart, as he would say this. There we go. As Dr. Ragnar would say this. Don't you come any closer. As he would starts to back up and starts flying away. As Bell would say this. Oh no, you're not. As he would starts to jump towards him. As he would say this. Now, take this. As when, Dr. Ragnar looks behind him, his claws, the cure, the cure that's basically covered in the claws, the cure that's basically just like covered the claws, is basically plunged into the heart of Dr. Ragnar. Dr. Ragnar would basically start convulsing, saying, You little brat, you, as he would start convulsing, scream at him, saying, You little brat, you ruined my ascension. I was meant to become a god. No, as he would start clawing at his face, as the scales would start to, molt, as his body would start becoming exposed, as Bell would bring up his, little shotgun, as he would say this. Any last words, Dr. Ragnar? As he would say this. You brat! You ruined everything! As he would say this. I guess this is goodbye. He would shoot him 2 times in the head, 2 times in the heart, and, 2 more times in the head just for good measure. So, after this, the rest of the, forces of humanity, or more specifically, the forces of the Familias, would basically defeat the rest of the, monsters or the B.O.W. infected monsters. Everybody would start saying, "We did it. We did it!" As everybody would start celebrating, knowing that they actually defeated Dr. Ragnar's forces. And as for Bell, he would look over and see Tione, as Tione would say this, We we did it! As they would start to hug, as Belle would say this, "So, can you give me some love?" As she would say this, gladly. As she would give off a smile, as she would say this to Belle, husband. As Belle and her would basically kiss passionately, as both Tiona and, Finn would just start looking at each other, as, Tiona would basically just, pick him up and basically kisses him. And as for, Bet, he would say this to himself, "I certainly need to get a girlfriend." And for, Leafia, she would say this, "I should probably get a boyfriend, or at least somebody." She would basically remind herself that she doesn't have any, dating experience. And so, this is basically the end of this series. But before you guys leave, let's talk about the epilogue, shall we? So, Belle and Tione would basically be married now, having two children, each having the abilities of, a Amazoness and, a B.O.W, but not as major. What do I mean by this? Well, instead of having, the grayish ass skin that Belle has, well, she would have more of a, how do I say this, normal ass skin. I mean, she still has a bit of veins showing, but it's not that noticeable. And they would become great adventurers as well, just like their parents. And Belle and also Tione would also become, pretty much idols in the eyes of the populace of, wait for a second, of Arario, which means that Belle is pretty much famous, especially if it comes to, foreign lands. Hearing his story of basically defeating Dr. Ragnar, basically the mad scientist, let's just say it basically has a profound effect on you. And so, him and Tione would basically have a good life, as this is basically the end of this episode. So, I hope you like this series, and before you guys leave, I'm going to be making a poll on, about the next what ifs that are basically going to come out very soon. Maybe after, the two other what ifs. So, yeah. So, I hope you liked the video, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!